There was a quick exchange in Jack Ryan's debut season that put the titular agent's devotion to the CIA to the test. Ryan, as portrayed by John Krasinski, was directly questioned about how he could work for an organization that had a long history of, to put it mildly, questionable behavior. He responded that he thought he could mend it better from the inside than the outside. At least at the time, this has been largely forgotten since then. To put it mildly, that was a questionable response that he didn't even appear to accept. He continued still without giving it much consideration, gaining the moniker Boy Scout that was given to him by many. Ryan could have done better to think more deeply about who he was working for and what might happen if he ran afoul of their interests before entering a third season with even higher stakes than before that puts him in the firing line. That might have made this season's emphasis on treachery and backstabbing more interesting than others that came before it. This is regrettably not the case. All of our favorite characters are moving in various directions in the season finale to avert a third world war. President Kovac, Greer, and November are currently traveling to Moscow's Kremlin tunnels. Elizabeth is pleading with the president in the Situation Room for permission to rejoin the conversation. In the Baltic Sea, Jack is attempting to land on a U.S. Navy ship that is well armed. Luca is traveling to the destroyer, where his former soldier is in command, at the same moment. Jack is given a ride by the Army Rangers as they attempt to board the naval warship in a chopper. Jack will not be permitted to board the ship by the United States commander. So, the Ranger queries Jack as to how crucial it is that he board that ship. Jack's reaction: he states, life or death. The Ranger then throws him into the water. Bennett, the commander of the ship, is now compelled by law to pick him up. The officer doesn't want Jack to tell him not to provoke a battle with Russia when he comes on board and puts on some dry clothes. Nor does he want to hear about any dispute. The commander's argument is unrelated to Russia in any way. A junior officer then informs them that a Russian ship is approaching them. Jack answers the officer's question about why that worries him. Tensions in the Baltic deliberately increased as a result of the unconstitutional coup taking place in Russia. Before she can say anything else, Jack informs him that it's a single ship called the Fearless, and the crew hopes the commander will adhere to his regular rules of engagement. Jack also informs him that the crew has psychological information on him and is aware that he can predict his every move. Luca, meantime, is aboard the Russian ship being steered by Antonov, an old comrade. When he enters his target's quarters, he is sitting there with an armed guard and is carrying a weapon. After that, Luca is arrested. For the purpose of voting Shurikov out of office, Petrov sets up a meeting with the cabinet. Greer unlawfully enters the Kremlin, memorizes is a number on a piece Russian paper, burns it, and then purposefully enters the incorrect passcode for a security door, prompting Kremlin security to arrest him. Finally, November and Kovac are led to the Russian president through a back door. The final component of this well-planned strategy to thwart the Crossbow Rebellion is Jack Ryan. The executive officer, the only person on the ship with the authority to challenge and overrule Antonov, is the man watching over Luca. Do you find that unusual? As he says, Petrov enters as Greer is being held at the Kremlin. Greer says he is here to offer him asylum and an apartment in either New York City or Miami in order to put an end to the madness. Greer claims to be aware of the coup. At the same time, Petrov is being recorded by Kovac and November in the Russian president's office discussing the strategy to remove him and restore Russia to its former grandeur. This starts a domino effect. When a Kremlin agent enters, he informs Petrov that the president wants to see him. He exits the building with a troubled expression on his face and ascends a short flight of stairs to discover Shurikov's security guards on both sides. He reaches for a gun, but is fatally shot before he can fire. The executive officer releases Luca from his cell and follows him to the bay where Antonov is beginning to fire upon the American destroyer. Nobody can understand why Antonov would begin this action without orders from the command center. In defiance of his second-in-command, Antonov opens fire on the ship. Bennett launches defenses to take down the armed missile. The president has given them permission to attack if they are fired upon. Thus, the United States has no time to defend itself and must shoot now. Bennett begs Ryan not to fall for the trap, but Ryan is under orders and won't listen. Finally, Antonov is apprehended. The second-in-command assumes leadership of the ship. and Luka is able to inform the warship that Antonov has been apprehended. Ryan makes sure to question Luka directly if Russia and the United States are at war. "That depends on you," Luka replies. After considering his options, Bennett chooses against opening fire on the Fearless. Elizabeth receives the position of Central Intelligence Agency Director at the conclusion of the season. Greer and Jack receive medals for their bravery from her. What honor is given to Jack for his bravery? Bronze Intelligence Star for excellent achievements or services rendered with distinction under conditions of grave risk or for voluntarily performing acts of courage under hazardous conditions. Jack and Greer exit Langley's front door after passing the stars on the wall. Luka finally makes goes inside and writes Jack a letter. Then he senses a knock on his door. A Kremlin agent who appears terrified is standing at his door when he opens it. By promising him that he won't cause him any difficulty, Luka calms him down. He may not have lived his life with honor, but perhaps he has done enough to die with honor, Luka writes to Jack in the letter. Luka is being led inside the Kremlin when we last see him.